Welcome to another episode of Behind the Business, presented by Gore Mutual. Today's episode is also sponsored by BDC as we celebrate BDC Small Business Week. I'm your host, Ian McLean, President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. This podcast is recorded on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. Each episode, I sit down for candid conversations where we go beyond the boardroom and behind the business to uncover the real stories within Waterloo Region's business community. Today's episode is sponsored by BDC, the Bank for Canadian Entrepreneurs, as we celebrate BDC Small Business Week from October 19th to 25th. Each day we're spotlighting a different small business owner from our community, the people who power our local economy, create jobs, and bring innovation to life. We're also excited to have this year's theme focus on the economic revolution and getting your business ready. Today we're sitting down with Destiny Moser, founder and executive chef of FoodZen. After nearly 2 decades in corporate tech, Destiny followed her passion for food blending her Indigenous heritage with a commitment to local and sustainable ingredients. Through FoodZen, she's redefining Indigenous cuisine and using food to reconnect, educate, and heal. We'll explore her journey, what drives her success, and the lessons she's learned along the way. Join me as we go behind the business with Destiny Moser. Well, we're excited to have you here today, and we are joined by Destiny Moser, the founder of a very impressive Indigenous and women-founded and owned business, FoodZen. So, you've been a very active chamber member over the last number of years, and the growth of your business has been impressive to say the least. And so, I know as you come through Truth and Reconciliation Month and all the celebrations and recognition of that important aspect of Canadian life, I'm thankful for you for taking time. I know how busy you've been, and so we really appreciate you taking time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's get started. And for those that don't know your story, it's fascinating, it's impressive, and we here at the Chamber have enjoyed getting to know your story, like many entrepreneurs. But let's start at the beginning. Tell me a little bit about yourself, your business, and how you kind of came to FoodZen.
Yeah, so I actually spent 17 years in the corporate world, a lot of mergers and acquisition, tech business system processes, so completely different background than what I am doing now. Food was always my love language. It was my passion. I always had this dream of being a chef, but didn't like the idea of chef hours, evenings, weekends. And so I kind of went down that path. I'm dyslexic, so I didn't have an easy time in school. Going to university, I really struggled with read these 15 chapters by tomorrow and then never discuss them. So it was really hard for me to read the words and absorb what I was reading. So I ended up really lucky. I was born of that age where technology and emailing and kind of that being the new wave of things be the main thing. And so when I entered the corporate world, everybody was learning. And I was very lucky. I'm very hands-on visual learner. So I quickly moved up the corporate ladder. And I loved every minute of it. And when I decided to leave, I thought a lot about what it is that I wanted, and if I'm going to leave, what better time than to really follow my passion. So I looked into some local schools, and I found, at the time it was called Liaison College, it's now called Top Tukes, and they were offering a program where you could get your culinary degree. While I was there, I learned about personal chefing, and I right away was like, I need this. And I couldn't believe it was something that was affordable. I thought it was something for the rich and famous. So I went home, talked to my husband, said, I think I'm going to quit corporate world. I'm going to start this personal chef business. And he's great. He was super supportive, on board with it. And the plan was I was going to have maybe, 4 clients a week. And this would be my more semi-retirement, work-life balance kind of era of my life. And soon after I made that decision, my mom passed away from mental health issues. She struggled with the abuse and torture she went through during the 60s scoop. And soon after that, they started finding unmarked graves. So all of a sudden, I realized that there was a bigger purpose to this. And it wasn't just about finding that like work-life balance, that semi-retirement dream, but it was about rediscovering my Indigenous heritage, and what better way than through food. So I didn't really know what that meant at the time. When I started FoodZen, I just knew that I wanted it to be following Indigenous philosophies of hyperlocal, ultra seasonal, trying to eliminate as much processed food as possible. And from there, the research just kind of kept growing and growing. And after 5 years, we've switched from personal chefing to pre-made meal delivery service. We partner with schools to do kids' meal programs, and we just opened our first brick and mortar in May of this year. So definitely took me on a path I wasn't necessarily anticipating or expecting, but the path to healing, not just for me, but for my mom and for my ancestors, has been a huge part of the growth, but also of the business, but also for me.
Mhm.
And so it's been amazing.
It sounds like, and even from the outside, because I can only imagine what it's like from the inside. It feels like it's been a whirlwind. Like watching from when we first got to know each other, and you got involved with the chamber, and we've done some Indigenous training, and you've cooked for us for our staff, but also events. It just feels like it's just been, and it just sort of whirlwind is probably a good description.
Whirlwind even feels like that's watered down,
Yeah.
right? I honestly feel like I'm on a high speed train and I'm holding on to the side just like wee.
So, it strikes me, every entrepreneur has that, when I talk to them and they said, here's how I started my business, there's that moment of here's what I really want to do. And there's the excitement of saying, I'm going to do it. And then there's the fear factor is when you're doing it and going, oh my God, did I actually really know what I was getting into? So when you think back on those early days of getting started, right? And you've kind of laid out where you started, where you are now, and it's different. It's in the area code, but it's a lot different than what you started with. What was the biggest learning curve or surprise about owning your own business? Because you've been in the corporate world, but it is different to be the leader and be responsible for all of those things, paying the bills, being responsible for staff. What was the biggest learning curve and surprise of running your own business?
I think for me, one of the good things is that I did start small. Like I didn't need a brick and mortar. I
Hmm.
didn't need a lot of stuff to be an in-home personal chef. And so there wasn't a lot of overhead costs. I think to start the business was like $800, right?
Yeah.
So very little overhead. It was that slow start. I didn't know at the time where I was going to take it. Like I said, it was kind of just going to be the semi-retirement thing, but very quickly I learned that no, people want this. They need this. The boxed meals aren't working. The pop it in the oven meals aren't working. They're so heavy in processed foods.
Hmm.
And so it switched
Hmm.
my reality of what people really were looking for and what people wanted. I think for me, the growth has been so quick that my biggest learning curve has been it's how do you delegate
Yeah.
to people, because I can't be everyone and everywhere all at once. And it's hard, especially depending on your concept. But for personal chefing, your employees are the ones generating revenue. And so I'm still trying to learn how to manage the back end stuff, because we're not quite at that point where we can hire a non-revenue generating employee. So it's balancing between like your revenue generating employees versus your non-revenue generating employees, and how to like also balance your time. Like, where is it easy for me to hire a chef to help with kind of that stuff so that I can step back and, be the marketing team, be the
Hmm.
finance team, be the HR team until we get to that growth level.
Well, that's a good segue. Small business owners always wear, it doesn't matter. You're leading a small group. You're wearing a lot of hats because you have to do a lot of different things. Um, and it's I've always said when you're a small business, everyone you hire really has to be a leader. Meaning whether it's revenue generation or being able to take initiative, because you can't do everything yourself as the leader, but as you think back on all those things from starting on yourself as a personal chef to where you are now, what have you learned about yourself as a leader? or entrepreneur. So I mean, you've got that. It's baked in now. You can see it every time we talk. You're like, oh, you're thinking about the next thing, and got that entrepreneurial real spark to it. But what have you learned yourself about yourself as a leader through that journey?
Um, First of all, I've been in leadership roles through the corporate world
Hmm.
for, I was probably about 12 years of being in some sort of a leadership role. So that side of it, I definitely felt like I had that growth. I went from being a new leader to a more seasoned one. So I brought a lot of that with me to the culinary world, which is completely different. And I'm even being told from other leaders in the culinary world that the way, or even just employees who have been in it much longer than I have, that I do lead differently, which is a compliment for me because that is what I grew from my corporate world job, and
Hmm.
the training that you get at that level being in a large company. I would say the entrepreneurial side is where I really have to hold back because I come from a world where there was potentially 10,000 employees, you have, multi-million dollar
Hmm.
revenue, and you have the ability to be like, I'm going to do this for my business and this for my team. And it's really now this balance of, when can I provide my team like benefits? When can
Hmm.
I, provide my team with like good work-life balance, and deciding what is important to you. So for us as a business, I knew I really wanted to have, a living wage. I wanted my employees to have, 3-day work weekend or weekends off. And so that was kind of where I started. And so it's just trying to make the right decisions from the business perspective so that your employees are happy. And if I'm trying to do this because I left corporate world to have a better work-life balance, it's not fair to me to then make my employees do that hard work that I had to do for so long to get to where I am. It's more about making the right decisions for your business and not necessarily growing too fast either,
Hmm.
because if you do, then everybody just feels burnt out and tired and overwhelmed.
You know, you can spend a lot of time trying to squeeze the next few hours from your employees or from your colleagues, but you can then also spend a lot of time filling job roles because people will come and go, because work-life balance and that striking that balance early on is important because especially for small business, replacing one person is it doesn't sound like a lot, but that if they're a leader and they're part of a small group, that's so disruptive to the business that making those value judgments of what you want so someone feels fulfilled, that they feel supported, is really wise because you hear it all the time. The churn of employees is one of the things that drags down a lot of businesses.
Well, even as you said earlier about, having, hiring people
Yeah.
and finding that when I am ready to hire somebody, like you had said, they need to be kind of like
Hmm.
self-motivated, self-starting.
You know what you're
When it's a
looking for.
small business,
Yeah.
it usually takes me about a year to even hire one person,
Mhm.
because like they are kind of their own individual small business
Hmm.
owners because they
Yeah.
have their own set of clients.
Yeah.
So it is important to make sure that when you do find the right person, you keep them.
So it's Small Business Week and Small Business Month, and our friends at BDC. I mean, we've got lots of partners inside that support small business. So there's the banks and there's credit unions and there's your accountants and lawyers, and BDC is a big part, especially for entrepreneurs, because they complement what you get from your traditional banking. And so they've been great partners of ours, and we at the chamber understand how important BDC can be in the growth. A lot of times it's more the promise of what your business can be, and they have a bit higher risk profile to be able to help support, whether it's bricks and mortar, whether it's new hiring. BDC is really important to the small business community in particular. Talk about how your relationship with them started, because I mean, I think one of the things we've been trying to do, and we partner with them on a lot of things, is get the message out that BDC is a great partner to have as part of your stable of tools as you're growing your business. talk about how that got started with you, and then how they supported you through the various iterations, even in the short time, relatively short time, they've been there along the way.
Yeah, actually, my relationship with BDC is actually quite new. So I obviously started this business at a time when the world and finances and all of that was
Hmm.
changing. And so I often say to people who have a business idea, well, how can you start small first? So maybe you want to be like a restaurant owner. I personally don't, but don't go and get the loans and get everything to own this restaurant that you're not 100% sure will work. First, build your
Hmm.
portfolio. So by starting as an in-home personal chef, you first learn kind of like what your niches are, how you work, what you're looking for, so you kind of build your brand first before you throw in the big dollars and
Hmm.
have to go seek loans. We are in a strange time in history where, putting in a big investment isn't always necessarily the right thing for a small business owner. So it wasn't until I decided that we needed our own space, our own brick and mortar,
Hmm.
that I had to go, wait, I actually need to think about finances. It's not like I just have this in my back pocket. And working with BDC was great because, as I said, the times aren't always easy right now financially. And to think about going into debt, and even for a lot of business owners, some people, for us it's our second career. So we're
Hmm.
at an age where maybe we shouldn't be thinking about going into debt, but continuing to save. And so they were so great at being a cheerleader. The other thing is that as a woman owner, as an Indigenous owner, and as a business owner, I really wanted to go in there knowing that I could do this with the money that my business had made up to this point. And I really wanted to, not that my husband isn't awesome, but I wanted to be like, no, I'm doing this on my own. I
Hmm.
don't need you to be a co-signer. And so they were really great about like working with me to help me put together like how has my business
Your
been doing up to
financials,
this
yeah.
point, and like how do we make sure that you're on the right trajectory, and to be my cheerleader, to be like, you can do this and we have faith in you. And yes, it can be scary. So let's talk about, is this something you can pay off quickly? Is it something that, takes a longer time? So again, it's that thinking that 5, 10 years
Hmm.
down the road. You don't want to sit in debt for 20 years, right? So, is it time to even move into your own
So they really
space?
personalized it, what your needs and philosophy was with,
A
and I think
hundred
that's one of the things
percent.
they do is they're in a way they're less cookie cutter than what you'd get from other financial sources.
And especially too, because when I take out a loan, and that financial institution, no matter what it is, I want to know that whatever money they're making off of my investment too is going to sources that I believe are true to me. And so BDC was so good about saying, like, what charities are important to you, what businesses, organizations are important to you that we invest in as well.
Hmm.
So that's another thing. Like, I always want to know that I'm working with a bank that supports Indigenous businesses, Indigenous like entrepreneurs,
Hmm.
Indigenous charities, because it's important for me, and that's important. Just the hyper local, ultra seasonal goes beyond food.
So, this come through in the conversation. Entrepreneurs and small business owners, you can't succeed alone. You need collaboration, and you need partnerships, either formal or informal. You need mentors. And so I guess the question I have is, how have the partnerships and mentors or mentors that have helped you along the way, helped you get where you are today? Because when there's the financial part, which you just talked about, and BDC plays a role in that. But beyond that, there's the testing some of your ideas on those that are going to tell you the truth, even when you may not want to know the truth. So mentors play a role. The partnerships that you develop to say, I can't do it on my own, but what if I partnered? How has that played a role, and how have you kind of incorporated that into your business?
Yeah, so I was really lucky that, because even when I was in corporate world, I really kept with the food scene. I volunteered a lot at the Kitchener Market. Many chefs come through there to always continue to learn about other cultures, other foods, for my own personal gain. A lot of us are just good home cooks.
Yeah.
And that's what I really loved about it. So when I decided to become a chef, I remember going to friends I had in the industry like Terry Salmon and Steph Souls and saying, I think I'm going to do this. And I think I want to do this. And they were like, you'd be good at it. And, I work very closely with a lot of the female founders in our industry. It's amazing to be cheerleaders for each other. It's amazing that even if you are in the same line of business, that it's not a competition. It's about here's what works for me or here's what hasn't worked for me. It doesn't mean it won't work for you, but it's nice to hear kind of lessons learned. I never want to be a caterer, for example. I do some catering, but the big weddings, all that. So it's great to say, oh no, I have a friend in the industry.
Yeah.
Here's who I would use and here's who I would suggest, and vice versa. That comes back. So having established a really strong network kind of in the field before I even decided that this is something I wanted to do was probably my biggest motivator, my biggest like kind of cheerleaders. And it's great working with them all still.
Well, and folks, you mentioned Steph Sewell. She's, of course, on the chamber board. It's just actually her second stint on the chamber board. I mean, you can tell the folks that are truly champions and mentors, particularly in her case, for the industry itself. But she certainly, and I think this is what you're getting at. Like she is giving back to the community, but that's an example of a mentor that you see all over the chamber world in every sector. Is people saying, you know what, there's room for more than one home chef or whatever your line of business is or area of business is. There's always room for one more, and it is so important. And I think it's one of the takeaways. Doesn't matter what industry you're at, is that you better have some folks that are going to help you test your own theories before you put money behind it.
For sure. And as we grow to the $1 million or million people population, everyone needs to eat.
Yeah.
And it's impossible for any one of us to feed 1 million people.
So the theme of BDC's Small Business Week this year is the economic revolution is here. Get your business ready. I think it's very timely because I've just come back from Australia and New Zealand from the World Chamber Congress, the Canadian Chamber annual meeting. The theme everywhere in the Southern Hemisphere and the Northern Hemisphere is the change is here, and the disruption that the U.S. and Donald Trump and tariffs is right across the globe, certainly here in Waterloo region, and it's not going away. So the revolution is here. Are you ready? Is a great theme for this year. Have you made a change, or what's the one change you've already made or are planning to make in your business to adapt to these what amount to structural shifts? Like, I mean, locally, provincially, nationally, internationally, there's change coming. What's the one thing that you've done to kind of start to get ready for that?
For us, we're very lucky so far because being a hyperlocal, ultra seasonal company, we haven't really been impacted by tariffs. We were already shopping locally. We were already working with farmers in our area to provide us the ingredients we need. Yes, we do use some international ingredients, and some of those have gone up, but I would say that's kind of 80% is hyperlocal, ultra seasonal. I haven't found a difference really in our costs at all this last year, even though I know costs are going up. For us personally, I haven't seen it. But what I am worried about and what we're really trying to figure out how do we manage it is once everybody starts buying hyperlocal, ultra seasonal, now I'm going to be low on product. Where do I go to find it? And I love that problem. That's a great problem to have. So what we've been doing is buying things in season when it's local, getting it prepped and put in the freezer for the winter. But also I did that even when I wasn't in the food industry, that's how I saved my family money. You shop in season, go to the market at the end of the day, you get the best deals, and preparing for winter. And so I've always kind of been in that mode of how can I prep for the times when it's dark and cold and things
Mm.
aren't necessarily available, um, in the time when it's sunny and warm and everything feels good. So I think that mindset is something that a lot of us, if we adopt it and get prepared, not only does it help you with lowering costs on the food side, because I'm tired of hearing people tell me that buying fresh food is more expensive, because it actually isn't if you have the tips and tricks to do it right. Plus, when you're eating whole fresh food and not packaged food, you're going to feel full faster and stay full longer. So the philosophies for me have been there. And now it's just figuring out, okay, well, if everyone's now doing it, how do we manage?
Canada's economy is changing fast. An economic revolution is underway, and your business is at the heart of it. AI is transforming the way we work. Global trade is shifting. Interprovincial barriers are falling. Thousands of businesses are about to change hands, and new investments are taking shape. This isn't a small shift. It's a real economic revolution. Business as usual? That's no longer an option. The future belongs to those who dare, who innovate, who make productivity a priority, who get ready for what's next and take action now. This Small Business Week, we celebrate the entrepreneurs writing the next chapter. You're not following change, you're leading it. Get inspired, network, and go for it. The economic revolution is here. Is your business ready?
Building on that, I mean, a lot of the businesses that I talk to that are in our chamber events, AI is in the tip of everyone's tongue, right? And it always amazes me because we're struggling to say, what is it that we can do to make sure our businesses are prepared? So yes, you're in the food business, but AI is everywhere. And I think it has technology. Have you tried it? I mean, maybe even in sourcing, right? Like leveraging technology and AI and trying to understand. Is that something that you're keeping top of mind of how you leverage technology even in the food space?
100%. I come from technology.
Yeah.
And for me, it was always, how do I automate this to make life easier for humans? You can't get rid of the human aspect. But even in corporate world, it was like, there are these laws and requirements and restrictions we have to follow. How do I make the system just figure that out for the human so that they don't miss it? In the food industry, it's similar. There's a lot of things I can ask, like, okay, let me just throw my data in there to show you all the subscriptions we've had the last year, what's trending, what postal codes are like seeing the most revenue. So I am able to throw a lot of that data in there, and for it to come back at me, it's not always right. And also it's always very trying to tell you positive things all the time. And that's the other thing I don't like, because you never get that, well, this is actually not a good idea. So you still have to be careful, because it will always be agreeable. But it is good to be able to throw things in there. Or even if I have a campaign in my head, I really want to talk about, say, launching our kids' meal programs. What's the best avenue to go about this? And I love a lot of the ideas that it gives me, as far as how to use social media to my advantage, how to use newsletters, things like that to my advantage. So I've definitely always been strong on the tech side, just coming from the tech world. And I think for the people in this industry, the food industry I'm in, that's my gift back to them. Like, how can I help you? Because you guys have helped me so much from the food perspective. How can I help you from the other side, coming with that knowledge?
So, I mean, we talked a little bit about who you have as mentors and you get advice from. But there's many businesses that are listening to this podcast or will see this podcast. What advice would you give to them, to other entrepreneurs that are either looking to start or scale their business in the community? What's the best advice that you would give them as they start on their FoodZen-like journey?
So some people will have a big goal, like opening a restaurant, as an example. I would say, how do you scale that down and take baby steps to that? Other people will have a small goal, like I call it a small goal now because of where I am. Hindsight's 2020. I had a smaller goal, and it's obviously led to something big. But also thinking, yeah, this is what I want to do, but jotting down other things you potentially could do so that when you get to different points in that growth stage, you can say, oh, this might be the next avenue I'm going to go. And maybe it isn't your big goal, but I would always say those small goals are super important because one, you're not left disappointed when you don't reach it. And two, it's like that extra motivator every time you reach that next small step or that small goal to be like, okay, I did it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I think that's the best advice I can give to people. When people ask me, like, where I see myself in 5 years, that's the hardest question for me because I've literally always had jobs that no one had before me. It was, oh, Destiny knows how to do that already, and we need this new role. So let's just put her in this new role. And I've always had that in my life and in my career. And even with this business, it has gone in a trajectory that I never possibly imagined. But once it started, now I have all these other small little goals. Like, okay, well, my goal right now, my main big goal is to change the way people see, buy, and eat food. How do I get the baby steps to reach everybody so that by the time I die, I can, take words like exotic off food and I can put the real meaning to whole food and organic food back in the market because it's all watered down right now. So,
Well, I have no doubt that you'll achieve that goal with the way that you've started your business and the way that you communicate those philosophies in and through your business. Listen, I'm interested. I mean, you've talked a little bit about the trajectory. What's next for the business? Like, at some point, sometimes you got the goals, and then you gotta kind of get to a point where you're saying, I got to achieve that one. But you're always looking forward while you're achieving the goal that's right in front of you. What's next for your business, and what does the horizon look like? So I won't ask the 5-year question because you said you won't answer that. But there's still a horizon of like what's the next year hold for FoodZen?
So starting the business again, it was just being a personal chef and hiring more chefs to be personal chefs. That changed. What people wanted changed. So there was a lot of people who were like, I love what you're doing. I love your food philosophies. This is exactly what my family needs, but we don't want you in our home. And that's why we switched to the personal chefing. And then we now have a group of people, then we had a group of people who were like, oh, I love what you're doing for my family, but like, I really just need help with my kids' lunches. So then we moved to the kids' lunches. And now what we're really hearing is, I love what you're doing. We love your food philosophies, but it's not necessarily something I can afford. Is there any way I can just buy your sauces and spices so that I can just make my own food at home with real whole foods? Like I can just buy the vegetable, I can just buy the meat, but then use your spices to give the flavors I want. So now if I just got through the semifinals of this thing called Powwow Pitch. It's Indigenous entrepreneurs across all of North America. The grand prize is $25,000, but even for the second and third prizes, it's pretty significant that I feel like that will be the seed money we need to launch the seasonings and the sauces. So I think that's kind of our next big goal, and we really need a proper fridge in our kitchen. So right now, all the money we've been kind of making, we're like, okay, we're one step closer to getting a proper fridge.
Yeah.
But again, it's that small goal of we need a fridge to the big goal of how do we get sauces and spices into homes.
Well, that's part of any business is usually if you're growing is you have to have more than one thing to sell, like one more product line. So food or spices and sauces and, kids' lunches and all of the in-home is all part of the value that people in the bigger context. And this podcast is, it's always a little bit about the story because the stories are fascinating. And I think anyone who's a business owner kind of watching someone who's been successful or is on the journey and you're watching and saying, wow, how did they do that? So it's about hearing those stories, but it's also about leadership. And because I don't think you can ever separate a successful business person without understanding their leadership philosophy and how they lead. And so I always ask this same set of questions to everyone that dares to come on Behind the Business podcast. I just kind of rapid questions to finish off. If you could go back, and what would you tell your younger self really at any point, but what would you tell your younger self as you reflect back on your career?
I think being a child who's Indigenous, having dyslexia, constantly being told many times throughout my life that you're not smart enough. Turns out I am.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would definitely tell my younger self, just cancel out the noise, follow your heart, be true to who you are. Don't let other people's opinions distract you from like the way you want to do things, right? And who you are. And obviously believing in yourself is number one, but sometimes other people's opinions or fears may hold you back.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. Who or what inspires you most?
I think right now, my biggest inspiration, and it's kind of a dark one, is really just being an advocate for every ancestor before me who couldn't do this. We have had up until the late 90s so many laws and legislations and rules, and some of them still exist today telling us we can't. We can't have Indigenous food. We can't have Indigenous philosophies. I really strongly suggest a great book called Indigenomics. You don't have to be Indigenous, but the way Indigenous people's philosophies in business and economics is completely different, and it feels to me like the right thing to do. So I think for me, my biggest inspiration is it's almost a responsibility to continue this path that my ancestors couldn't.
This is going to be a strange question, but I always ask it so I'll be interested in how you answer this, because you're right in the middle. If you weren't in your current career, because this is really your second career, yes. Corporate, and now you're an entrepreneur. But if you weren't doing this, what do you think you'd be doing instead?
So when I left corporate world, one of the hardest things that I had thought about, I wrote a list of everything I would miss about my job and how I could translate that into what I do today. And the one thing on that list that I didn't think I could translate, because I was just going to be a personal chef working on my own, not really having anybody to chat to, was the training and mentorship side. And it turns out that's now become the biggest part of my business. My role in the business is that training and mentorship side. I think that I would probably love to just be out there and like supporting people and rising people up and helping them like build their businesses or their ideas.
Training, coaching, helping people develop their own leadership skills.
Exactly, because I get the most passion out of people who even succeed me. I think it's just amazing to watch.
I like that, Anne. That's great. I mean, that is a leadership of giving of yourself to make other people better is a good one, and you would be good at that too. But we want FoodZen to keep successful. What book are you reading, or a podcast other than Behind the Business that obviously you watch? What podcast or book are you reading right now?
Podcast. I'm listening to Armchair Expert because it's just laid back but still has some good advice. Books I'm actually reading too, because I always say that you have to be reading something for fun and something serious. So I'm reading the new Hunger Games book, and I'm also reading You Are the Medicine. And so one of them kind of gives me life lessons about, generational trauma and how like I can be my own healer in a world that doesn't necessarily heal me. But then, Hunger Games is so great. I need to read it before the next movie comes out.
Yeah. So just thinking locally, it's you are a local business, but what's one of your favorite local businesses in Waterloo region?
I definitely love working with Fennings Farm. Their philosophies of food is right down my alley. They're not Indigenous, but they put so many Indigenous ideas and concepts into way that they're growing their food. I love then going to restaurants like Trio and there's been a lot of great things coming out of Gaslight District where they're actually using Indigenous ingredients too. So I'm always amazed and happy to work with people, whether they're allies or they're Indigenous, those businesses that are still kind of following those philosophies.
Mm-hmm. I think Jen, we had her on maybe one of International Women's Day. Anyways,
she's great.
She's
fabulous.
Great. Yeah. Okay, and just as we wrap up, for anyone that's watching or listening, and they want to connect with FoodZen, understand more of what your offerings are, or just connect with you, how would they learn more about you, Destiny, and FoodZen?
You can find us on social streams and our website, foodzen.ca.
That's perfect. Listen, one of the most valuable things that entrepreneurs and small business owners have is their time. And we know how valuable that is. I know how valuable it is, and I know how busy you've been this last year, but certainly this last month in September is a busy month for you. So thank you for sharing some of your valuable time with us today.
Thank you, Chi Miigwech.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Behind the Business, proudly presented by Gore Mutual. Thanks again to BDC for this special Small Business Week episode. We're celebrating all week and dropping a new episode each day. You can also visit greaterkwchamber.com to catch up on past episodes anytime. We'll see you next time as we continue to go behind the business.